Okay guys, so let's move into part 3 of lesson 2. So this is lesson 2, then the part 3 section of lesson 2, a continuation of the previous practical, right? So I'm going to continue on the previous practical and deal further with it, right? So what I want to do is I would like to get a copy of the previous project, right? So I'm going to make a copy of the previous project. So let me go into, so I got adaptive user interfaces. I'm going to make a copy of it. So Control C, Control V, Command C, Command V, right? I got a copy. Then I'm going to rename this project, right? So I would like to call it as part 3, right? Part 3 of this section, right? So I just got it renamed. So then on Xcode, I'm going to open that project. So file, open. Okay, guys, open the project. Where is it? So yeah, this one, part 3. One more thing. Let me open this and then rename it from there. So open. Right, so I got it open, and I would like to rename the project name. Right, so right click, you just click and rename, right? So 2 and part 3, right? Okay, rename. Then I would like to expand, and yeah, this is where we stopped, and I would like to build the project, right? Clean build. Build succeeded, and I would like to run it on iPhone 11 and see, whether it stays where where it was. So it's running on the emulator. Let's see what it gives us. Okay guys, it stays as it is in the previous example, same as this. So let's run on the iPad as well. That's the problem we are going to solve next, right? That's what we discussed. So on iPad, so the label, the heading label is sorted, but not the stack view. So we have to use the same approach, right? Let's wait it till it gets sorted. So what was the approach? Approach was to add the constraints. So now we have to add the constraints to the stack view, right? So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to click on the stack view, and once again I prefer to access them from the view hierarchy over here. So now I know this is the first row, this is the overall stack view, right? So I'm clicking on the overall stack view, and then I would like to add the constraint. Let us say I want this to get centered, right? I want this to get centered. So then the same thing, right? So, and one more thing, I just would like to put it a little down, like little bit, right? So I would like to get this centered. So I'm clicking on the stack view, then I'm pressing the control key like earlier, right? Pressing the control key like earlier and drag it to the outer container and say, what do I want to do? Okay, I want to center it horizontally, right? Now that is one option which I can do, right? So that's one option. But let me show you another option now. That is one way of doing it. The other option is, I'm not going to do it. I'm just clicking outside. So it didn't work. Now over here down in this device configuration bar over here, if you can see where my mouse is, I got a couple of options here, such as align, add new constraints, right? Resolve auto layout constraints, right? So this, in this device configuration bar, I got these options. Okay guys, so I'm going to click on, let us say, the align option, and I can say here horizontally in the container, right? So if I want to align horizontally, so instead of doing it like in the other way, I can do it this way as well. So if I say horizontally in the container, you can say add one constraint, right? Just giving you example, right? So it gets the horizontal alignment, as you can see. If you are in the, what's this, in the size inspector, right, you will see that it's aligned, right? Only, but then the second, at least as I said, you have to give two constraints, right? At least two constraints. So then the second constraint is the gap from the top, but this time I want it to have maintain the gap from the title label, employee window label, right? So once again I have two options, right? So just click on the stack view and control drag, not to the outer window but to the label, right? So if I control drag to the label, once again I can say okay, vertical spacing. So that way it will maintain that vertical spacing. Now I will not do it. I will show you one thing. I'm not doing. I'm just clicking outside, right? I just centered horizontally. I didn't put the second constraint. Let's run this, right? Let's run this because it's important for us to gradually understand this process, right? If I run it without doing that second constraint, right? So I got my, as you can see, I got my stack view centered, but not that top alignment is not yet done because I did not put that second constraint. So let's put the second constraint now, right? So either I got two options now, as you are aware. One is drag into the, but not to the outer, because now I'm going to maintain the gap from the stack view to the label. So I'm going to release and say vertical spacing, but I'm not clicking it, right? Instead of that, there's another option where you click on the stack view and you click here, right? You click on add new constraints, right? So you got this one alignment, right? Then you got the other one next to it, add new constraint, right? So if I click on add new constraint, from here also you can give the auto layout constraints. Now what I'm doing right now is coming under auto layout constraint. Not only this, okay, even the previous one. So for example, when I drag either the label or the stack view, and when I'm adding one, so this is all adding auto layout constraints. So this is what I'm doing is auto layout constraints, because now I have finished the stack, right? Now all the components are inside the stack, but I'm giving constraints not to the components, not to the employee number label, not to the employee name label, not to the save button, not to the delete button. I'm giving constraints to the stack view as a whole, and that is done through auto layout, right? So even for the label was the same, right? When I control drag all this, if I click something from here, it's adding auto layout constraint. So effectively we have already started auto layout as well now, right? We have started auto layout. Now I want to give auto layout constraint for the stack view so that it maintains the gap. So one option is drag and drop. That is one option, as that is one way of giving auto layout constraint. Second option is by using this device configuration bar and adding a new constraint, and it says spacing to the nearest neighbor, right? So and it can see from the top. So when you say spacing to the nearest neighbor, what it means is, so what's the nearest neighbor, right? So I have to be a bit careful here. So if I look at this navigation hierarchy, I have the stack view here, then I have the label here, right? But the stack view in the visual outcome, the stack view is below the label. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift the label, the heading, just above the stack view, right? Inside the strafe area, right? Just above the stack view. But it does not affect the outcome in the right hand. It's just the navigation hierarchy, right? It's the hierarchy, right? It's a navigation hierarchy, right? It's a navigation hierarchy, what I'm talking here. So in the navigation hierarchy, now I moved the label to be above the stack view. So the nearest neighbor to the stack view is going to be the employee window, right? So keeping that in mind, what I'm doing is click on the stack view. Make sure you click on the stack view, then make sure you click on add constraints, right? Add new constraints, and you can say the spacing to the nearest neighbor, right? So if I click this, right? Say if I click this, right? If I click on this, and then see there's option called constraint to margin. So I will talk about that as well. So constraint to margins, right? Let's see what it does. Let's keep it like that and let's talk about that. So if I say add one constraint, right? Let's say I want to maintain a gap of how much? Say 30 pixels, right? A gap of 30 pixels. Just click here. Make sure to click here, right? And say add one constraint, right? So now what happens is, because I said constraint to the nearest neighbor, what happened was it got constrained to the nearest neighbor. As you can see this, the stack view got constrained. Hold on, now look here, because of that option, it said constrained to the Give me a second, I will show it to you. So let me click on this. Let's see where it has constraint, whether it's to the label or whether it's to the top of the outer, container. So let's click on the stack view and let's go. You remember we can check the what? We can check the size inspector. So where align is fine, and let's see where it has kept the space, right? Let's click on this, then we can read where it has kept, right? Okay, so it has aligned it to the top actually, right? So employee window, yeah, employee window button. So second item is, let's just hold on, the bottom of employee window, that's right. So then it has constraint to the first item, which is stack view the top. So which is, let me see if I run this. Give me a second, just to see what has happened, right? Let's run this and figure out what has happened. So when I add that, let's see, now it says 30. Let me add a little bit of extra and see, right? So let's click on say stack view, right? Let's click on this second one, right? The top of the stack view is to the employee window. Let's see, let's add some constraints just to figure out what has happened. So if I put, say, how much, 10, right? I'm read very close, right? If I say 10, a value of constant value of 10, it looks like it maintains to the label, right? Because the nearest neighbor is the label. So if I run this, let's see, right? Because the design canvas shows us the pixel perfect rendering, so we should not worry about it. So it's the nearest neighbor has been recognized as the label, so it's maintaining that gap between the label. So if I put, say, 30, it will have a bit of extra gap, yeah, from it to the label. Now let's run this now, guys, right? Let's run this and see what's happened. So if I run this now, see, it's now it's centered, and it's also maintaining the gap from the label. And let's run this now on the iPhone, right, and see what it does, right? So let's see. So guys, so this is a very important section what you looked into, right? So it works, right? It works, something very important, and now you got to know how you do it, right? So it looks really good, guys. Now you have got the basic hang of doing this, and it's working on both both the layouts. Now let's take one more step forward, right? Now so this is the basic of auto layout, right? Basics of auto layout. Now let's try to make it look little nice. Now one thing, I would like to have these text boxes align, right? So how would I do that, right? How would I do that? What I would do is I would click on this text box now, and then let's say I would drag this, right? I would drag this just to this, and say that I want it to get aligned into the leading edge of the second text box. I want it to get aligned to the leading edge of the first text box. So this way it gets aligned to the first text box, and I would like to say this one also to get aligned to the leading edge of the first text box, and this one also I would like to say get aligned. So drag it and put it here. These are all constraints I'm adding, right? Leading edge of the, just in case you want it to be like this, right? Okay, what's next, right? Then that was a couple of constraints. So you can see those constraints. If you click on each of these, if it's not in the attribute inspector, it's in the size inspector, you can see it has got added, right? Before I add it, the constraints were not there, right? So align it, so it gets aligned. So when I put the constraints, can you see it's adding some horizontal constraints, right? It's adding. So if I undo this, I will show it to you once again. If I undo, right, I'm undoing one by one, right? So I undo this, guys. So after I undo, if I come and check, look at this, there are no constraints. See, there are no, see, if I click and if I'm in the size inspector, guys, there are no constraints. Hope you understand this. Now I'm going to put them back once again. Because I undo it, control drag and say leading. The moment I put that, can you see, guys, the constraint appears. I will show it to you in the next text box. Now there's no constraint here in the size inspector, but if I add the constraint, guys, to the leading edge, can you see it's making horizontal constraint. So now everything is getting clear to you little by little, right? So these are constraints, right? Once again, they are auto layout constraint, my friends, right? They are auto layout constraints. And then I can add few things like, okay, let us say if I click on this what do you call stack view, which is this one. So if I'm click from the view hierarchy, then if I go to the property palette, I can give some spacing, guys, right? So if I say spacing is like 50, see what would happen. Then it maintains a spacing of 50, right? So that, because then I have aligned this to be aligned to the edge of the first one, the design canvas automatically makes the appropriate, alignments, right? And then I would like the whole outer stack view, the vertical stack view, to also have gaps in between. So in that also I'm going to go to the property palette and say, okay, spacing of say 20, right? See, it gives a spacing of 20 for each. This is the beauty of using stack view. So you control a lot of things using the properties of stack view, right? Okay, and then the last one where I got the buttons, I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to give some spacing first, like say 30, right? For example, a space of 30. And then I would like to have equal distribution. So the distribution, I would say, make it fill equally, so that it's going to have an equal distribution, shared amongst it. So this is how you play with the stack view, my friends, right? This is how you play with the stack view, and also with the auto layout constraints, right? So things are getting clear to you little by little, which is happy news. Which is happy news. Let's run this now, right? Let's run this on iPhone 11. Right, and keep in mind our focus is making adaptive user interfaces, right? So let's see what's happening. Awesome guys, I can see it here. Let's type some text. Employee number 1, say employee name, say John, right? And this is intrinsic, because a text box is an intrinsic component having intrinsic sizing. The moment I type text, it gets adjusted. If you don't like this behavior, you can give a fixed width, right? You can give a fixed width if you don't want this behavior, right? So let's say 120, let's say 341, right? Dale Street, right? Something like this. So it's having intrinsic view. So if you don't want this to get like this, you can give a fixed length, right? You can give a fixed length. For example, if you don't want this to happen like this, what you can do is you can give fixed width, right? But before that, let's see whether this works on the other one as well, right? So but it works definitely, right? So if I run this to work on the iPad, right? So let's run this. Right, awesome. So it gets centered and stuff like that. Then if I give say employee number 45, say John Perry, right? Some salary, it works, guys, right? It works. Okay, cool. So it now at least we have some basic structure which is adaptive, and let me bring you back to my iPhone 11 view and let me run this and show you a few things, right? Let's discuss a few more things, right? Let's discuss a few more things. So on this now, if I keep on adding, say it's intrinsic text field is an intrinsic view, right? So if you keep on adding things, it gets auto adjusted, right? So something like this. Now can you see what's happening? I just want to show this, right? So it's keeping. So if you want this behavior, if you want to stop this behavior, that's what we are going to look next, right? After this, right? We are going to look at the next part of the lesson is about that. But before that, I could show you one more thing. Which is, so if you don't want this intrinsic view to expand like this, what you can do is you can click on one of these text fields and then you can go to add new constraints, right? Add new constraints, and you can give a fixed width, right? So for this text box, if you say a fixed width of, let us say, I don't know, 100, say 100, and add the constraint, then it will maintain the fixed width. So if I run this now, guys, And also if you look at this, it will add it, see, a width of 100. If you run this now, this will stay, like this without, having that intrinsic property. So if I put something here, if I say John Perry, and then if I say salary of something, right, and if I type the address, right, say, see, it stayed fixed, right? So something for you to, think, something for you to use as well, right? So don't worry about that. So let me go like this, right, like over here. So see, so that's fixed. So that's what, if you want to keep it that way, right? So that's one option, right? But let me show another way in the next lesson, of how you add further constraints and, do things the way you want, right? So this is one thing, and I was just changing the orientations, right? So see, if I change the orientation from portrait to landscape, right? So how you do it is, in the keyboard, while you pressing the command keys, you use the arrow keys, right? So command keys. So if now, while this, if I press the command key in the keyboard and press the right arrow key, it takes you into this landscape mode. And once again, with the command key, if I press the left arrow, it brings to the portrait. So but even see, in the landscape mode, the theory is in action now. It gets centered because I said the constraints I have given is center the label and center the stack view, right? So if you don't add these constraints and you do this and see, it won't work like this, right? You will see a very weird output, right? A very weird output, right? So guys, you all are learning a lot of things, which is happy news, right? You all are learning a lot. So this is the beginning, and you have done certain things to understand the adaptive, developing adaptive user interfaces, right? So you should be happy, guys. But there are a few more things for you to learn, right? There are a few more things for you to learn. Let me, which is what we are going to discuss next, right? So let me go to the iPad Pro once again and just run this, right? Let me show some changes, what you could do, into app, right? Let us say in the iPhone, it looks fine, but let's in the iPad, if you want to do some changes, let us say larger font size, for example, now, because it has more space, so lots of things can be tackled. But this is once again the portrait, the view of the landscape view of the iPad, right? So our theory is in action. The constraints are getting fired, right? The constraints are getting triggered actually, and when the environment changes, the right constraints are applied, right? So it's happy news for you guys. So what's next is, we will add more constraints, and we'll add more things for you to learn, a few more things. And one thing, though I gave a fixed size for the intrinsic fields, in general you don't tend to give a fixed size for the intrinsic fields. You let them grow, but you control how much it can grow. You control with some other constraints, and let's see about that in our next video, right? So let's see you in the next video, my friends. See you until that.